The BBC has historically been, on a no-touch platform, but we're getting to a point now where people are actually fed up of the bias and fed up of the bloat and the overspending and all these things. Where do you stand on it?
Yeah.
What's made you think, actually, we need to do something about this?
I've been sceptical, that's quite a mild word, about the BBC for some considerable time. But I do remember a period not so long ago when I thought it would be okay for somebody like me to treat with the BBC that essentially, although they were annoying and left biased, that they were an institution which, well, was part of the fabric of the nation, and that one shouldn't reject it outright. So, as you know, I used to appear on programs like the Daily Politics. There was a time when I appeared on that arts review show, which was made in Glasgow, and who did it? Martha Carney, I think, was the presenter when I was doing. It's had a long history. What's it called? Late review, something like that.
But that in itself is a thing that the BBC used to be good at, isn't it? Arts and looking after things that other stations wouldn't necessarily promote.
Absolutely, and that was one of the reasons I was quite pro the BBC. That the production values were good. It took art and literature and so forth, the culture, seriously. You could have conversations which one almost can't have anymore. Everything is now so polarized and so politicized that you can only talk about politics, pure politics. Today, the BBC is so monstrously evil, I think there is no question it should be defunded. It has no purpose other than as a propaganda arm for the left. And and the big government and all the things that I utterly despise. The BBC is over as far as I'm concerned.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Like you say, you were on panels with people of different opinions. There was true diversity there now. Now all they're looking at is diversity of a superficial form. They want people of different colours, but all thinking the same, all part of the groupthink, as long as everyone's promoting social justice warrior causes and being politically correct, not stepping out of line, then they're fine. But the moment you say something that they don't like or agree with, you're done.
I'll tell you another. There have been various signs and portents that I think this decline has happened quite rapidly. It was, if you could draw a line, it would be sort of its decline. It would be going like this, and then suddenly, in the last 2 or 3 years, whoop, like that.
That there's been a complete shift from this impartiality to a left-wing basis, and the BBC, has been criticised for years. People on the right have said it's biased. People on the left have said it's biased, and I really don't think it's pro-Labour or pro-Conservative or anything. It is just pro-woke BBC. They've got their own political agenda.
Yes, I suppose that it would be, but given that left and right don't really make it's not about the political parties, is it? It's really about what you might call the deep state, and the deep state is irredeemably liberal left, and unfortunately the BBC is very much part of that. It's the propaganda arm of the deep state.
I think in our population, ethnic minorities, black and ethnic minorities, make up about 13%, especially in London metropolitan areas. On the BBC, in their shows, it's 23%. So they're doubling it. They're overcompensating, and it just looks fake. It doesn't represent real life.
It doesn't represent real life, and of course it's not enough. I mean, if it was bad then, like last year, think how much worse it gets now that they've got. I think this supports my thesis that the BBC is a sort of branch of the deep state, because you see it, for example, in the fact that BAFTA, which doles out all the awards that directors and producers and writers want to win, now itself has a diversity rule, which means that basically if you don't push the right diversity buttons or transgender buttons or gay buttons or whatever, you're not eligible for an award.
What would you like to see happen, James, with the BBC?
Just forced to survive on the in the open market. I don't think that. You see, my worry is that even if it were defunded, as it should be, I mean, I don't think that the license should be compulsory. I think it might still do quite well, which would be a shame, because I think it needs to be destroyed and rebuilt. We've seen already in the recent purging of the airbrushing from history of certain programs, like, I mean, embarrassing Little Britain chats. You know, Williams and what's the other one called?
Oh,
David
gosh.
Williams and
It's gone.
I find I get terrible aphasia when I'm doing these podcasts, particularly
because you're on the spot.
with names.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But you would have thought that the job of any artist is to stand up for his art and say, look, this is the deal. This is what I did, and it was funny and it was right for its time. And
Matt Lucas.
You know, Matt Lucas. I've got no regrets, because that was then and this is now, which is more or less the line Harry Enfield took, and
John Cleese.
Props. Who else? Sorry?
John Cleese as well.
John Cleese. Yeah. I mean, these people's names should be actually inscribed on a plaque. The heroes of the Cultural Revolution. The BBC, if the BBC thinks that its back catalogue is the property of woke BBC Inc., then it deserves to be punished for this, because actually it's part of our national heritage, our cultural heritage. And I don't mind paying for that, but I do mind very much paying if the BBC is going to censor its past and give us an incomplete picture of what entertained us in the old days. I don't believe in censorship. If the BBC engages in censorship, I hope it will be. I wish that it could be punished by the market.
I don't understand why their charter covers all live television. I get it when they first started and they were all live television, but now we've got hundreds of channels. Why should I pay the BBC if I just want to watch sport on Sky or something else on YouTube, or just because it's live? Why did they get money for it, and why am I under threat of prosecution if I don't pay them? It makes no sense in the modern day.
That's another problem, of course, that it's a quasi-monopoly. It's protected by, it's got an historical advantage, which is a barrier to entry to new, more agile organisations. I mean, how would you? It really has cradle to grave coverage, and I think back in the past that how we used to, growing up as kids in the 1970s. The amount of children's TV was quite limited, but there was in the morning, in the school holidays, you would get things like The Crusaders and Robinson Crusoe and The Flashing Blade, and then in the evening you'd get Animal Magic with Johnny Morris, and you'd get the Magic Roundabout would always close the evenings, when somebody would say it's time to bed, and that was time for you to probably go to bed as well as a child. So, but the BBC, what I'm saying is the BBC's had this grip on our culture. And then when I was travelling in a car with my father, he would always put on the BBC News on Radio 4 on the hour, and so you'd listen to that. And the BBC's controlled our culture.
That's awful now as well, isn't it? Radio 4, that's gone very woke. I can't listen to it anymore. I'm on talk radio all the time.
Oh, Calvin, I won't even do that. I mean, even talk radio is too left wing for me.
Oh, really?
I say that. I was being slightly mischievous. I now have completely given up all forms of BBC radio. The BBC has a market distorting effect. So, for example, why are so many comics left wing? I think it's partly because the BBC pays you if you're a left-wing comic. You know,
course.
there's any number of panel shows.
Oh, that niche guy who's not even funny. With it. Oh, it's just propaganda, isn't it?
It's not so much that they get massive appearance fees, but they get promo. This promo is worth a lot to be endorsed by the BBC.